Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Tuesday, June 16th. So, theme of the day, I call it the gap open and chill. So, basically, we're seeing these big run-ups into the open. We've seen this now. It feels like a couple times, but here's what we look like for the S&P 500. S&P futures. Again, I tend to use S&P futures. I think if you use something like SPY or SPX, you're going to see, we're into this gap from the island reversal, so a lot more technical if you use something like the SPX or SPY chart because it's going to have more gaps in it, and people really love their gaps, right? They do, right? This was known as an island reversal when something like this happened, and now we're filling the gap, but people will probably overanalyze this candle a little bit. If you look at S&P futures, it's continuous, right? So the reason why you've got all those gaps is because, of course, the cash market is only open between 9:30 to 4 o'clock, while S&P futures are open almost, they're open 23 hours out of the day. So therefore, it's just a lot more solid to me. But again, like I said, people like their gaps and people like the island reversals and so forth. But to me, it just looks like we're retracing some of that move that we saw from last Thursday. We're not all the way back there yet. Some positives and negatives from today, and which is fine because I don't think we always want all negatives and we don't always want all positives. Maybe sometimes we want all negatives because it's a buying opportunity. But a couple things. The VIX today almost finished positive for the day. So I kind of changed. I was on Bloomberg TV earlier just for like a quick minute, and I mentioned that the VIX was up as well as the S&P was up, which is kind of a warning signal when you see something like that. But the VIX actually closed lower for the day, so that takes out that bearish looking signal. It looks like the VIX finished down 2% for the day. So just by the skin of its teeth there, the put call ratio was heightened, not heightened, very low again today. So again, it seems like there's a lot of complacency in the market. They're going over the Bank of America fund manager survey on CNBC right now. I think that's telling as well. Keep in mind they do a survey to the all the fund managers, right? Hedge fund managers, portfolio managers, and what they were saying is that I think I have this in here. But I think what they were saying is that their cash balances are pretty low, right? Not the money market cash balances, but basically what they see. Right? What did they say? Paying trade still up. Bank of America fund manager survey shows growth expectations jumping, cash levels collapsing, risk appetite surging. Wall Street past peaks pessimism, but June optimism fragile, neurotic, and nowhere near dangerously bullish. So, right, and I think that's the reason why I'm reading this. It's kind of a good way to describe it, right? We're going over the put call ratio, which I think just the equity put call ratio. We'll get the final numbers later, but I think it was like back to 0.41 again. So we talked about this. I've talked about the put call ratio a few different times. You can look at it on Thinkorswim, but we got a little bit heightened, and we're basically we're basically back to where we were, indicating some complacency in the market. So there is some momentum, and I think that's what you kind of saw going into the open again. And also, like there's some points to kind of take away from that. If you're not familiar with this, let's see if I still have this. This is we talked about this pre-market because pre-market there just wasn't. I'll go over like the kind of the strategy for the day, which was basically take profits on the open and then kind of look for some trades. And there were some trades to be found. Roku had an amazing day today, but these days, like you kind of have to take these days for what they are. When we gap up, when we start the day up 2%, right, there's just not going to be a lot to do on the long side. And that's okay. It's now the summertime. I know people don't like to hear this, but it's nice to take profits on the open. And you can come out, you could trade maybe for an hour and then take a big break, maybe go outside. I always talk about feeding the ducks. You can go out and feed the ducks. That's my little joke. And then you can kind of come back and maybe trade for the afternoon and think about if you want to put on any risk during the overnight session, because it just is what it is. And the chart that I have in front of you, I know this drives day traders nuts to show this chart, but the 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 majority of the moves happen in the overnight markets, right? So this is the gain since 1993 is basically, now again they're measuring this from open to close. So 9:30 to 4 o'clock, that's the red line. If you basically did the trade where you bought the open and sold the close versus selling the close, sorry, which is, and the other way, the green line is buying the 4 o'clock close and selling the open, right? And you could see it's a dramatic different number. So we talked about, like I said, we talked about this pre-market in the Tribeca Trade Group trading room, and we had a nice conversation about this. And one of the questions was, well, why doesn't everybody just do that? Well, there's a couple reasons why everybody does that. One is it's not sexy. Right? Everybody wants to trade during the daytime. So that's number one, and it's also, my opinion is it's investor psychology. Everybody's had that one time that they have held something overnight and they got burned on it. And some people have changed their tune completely about how they're going to trade because they've had that experience. And they're like, oh, geez, I need to see, I need to control. I need to see, the ticks in front of me. And so people like that control. And that's why a lot of them have changed to day traders. But day trading is really not where the money is. Now you can scalp and you can make money. There's no one saying that you can't do that. But considering that the performance is so different, I think it goes back to that psychological and a little bit of fear. Because that one time or those couple times where you've lost money over in the overnight market, that scars you mentally and says, oh, geez, I don't want to do that. But meanwhile, the majority of the time, that's not the case, right? And I know that happened a few years ago with, like, when stuff was going on with Asia, the market sold off hard. That one time scarred people. And people are like, oh, geez, I'm not going to hold stuff overnight. But I'll tell you, that's the way the market is. And one of the things that we talked about was going into the open was trying to do as little as possible today, other than taking taking profits on the open. It just is what it is. What happens a lot of times is traders who are day traders and who don't have any exposure from the overnight session, they see the market moving up going into the open and they get excited and they're like, geez, I got to make up. The market's up this much. I should be up. And they start over trading and giving back either profits from the overnight session, or they could actually end up down on the day because they didn't have any exposure. So it's just food for thought. The reason why I like to always go over this chart is it should kind of hit you in the face that that's where that is where the majority of the profits are made over time. So I hope that makes sense to you. I'll move away from that. So basically, what I said this today, and I kind of put in a few different updates in here, was that sticking to the plan. Big gap updates are hard to trade. Took profits, and I'll go through my trades. And then we'll watch and see how we close for any other, swing ads. I rebalanced, and the other way that I kind of tackle this too. Somebody asked me, because we do have what's known as the Tribeca Trade Group tactical portfolio. That is a portfolio that I use to basically follow the trend. So I've got names in there like Shopify, Lulu, Tesla, Amazon. Because over time, I want to participate in all these moves and stick with the trend, right? And not try to basically trade in and out of things, which is my trading account, which is basically I day trade in my trading account. And then I have all types of duration swing trades in there, some options, some stocks. So those two different approaches work really well for me. And as a member, you can, get access to basically both, right? We send out positions at the end of the day of all the trades that I did in my trading account. And of course, you could see what I've done in in the tactical portfolio too. I send out positions in both places. So yeah, so here's my trade. So I did add risk decently yesterday. Because I was just seeing like a lot of good setups. I think we talked about that in yesterday's video. But I basically I followed the script. I got out of Microsoft. I got out of Lulu. Where did Lulu close, by the way? Because sometimes these things you kind of want to get back into them, and then you forget to get back into them. This is fine. It's basically opened where it closed. So 310.61 is where this thing closed. Where did I sell this thing today? Yeah, right around 310. That's fine. Crowd, an interesting one. This was in the beginning of the day. Remember how we kind of set up in the beginning of the day was that it was more of a dash to trash rally, as they call it, right? A lot of the travel stocks were going up again. A lot of the bottom feeders, the underperformers, were moving. And then things kind of flipped around a little bit. Once we're starting to get information about what's going on in Texas, what's going on in Florida with new coronavirus cases, then it kind of flips back to more of names like Peloton. And again, these are the same names. You could write these names down, but it's basically the same trade. When you hear about cases going up, you can automatically switch over to names like Peloton, which finished flat on the day, but still nice green candle from where it opened, because a lot of these names were like down 2 or 3% on the open because it was that dash to it was more of your travel names that were that started the day green. Let's just look at the 5 minute chart. So like I said, Peloton started the day like down 3%. Teladoc is another one, right? This will also started red on the day, so finished flat, but you had a scalp opportunity in these things. Zoom finished up again. Zoom finished, I think, probably opened around flat or maybe down a little bit for Zoom, but that's been the trade. Once those COVID cases come out and they're higher than what the 7 day average is, this is you go right into some of these names become go up as long as volatility isn't extreme. These names tend to gravitate up. This other one is doing very well too. Maybe you can add this one into the mix too. This LVGO had a nice breakout today. New 52-week high in that one. All right, so that's kind of the game plan, and so it's good, and that's one of the things that I really like to kind of go over pre-market is that strategy. Right? I try to really help traders get set up for the day on what they should be doing, or what some things that they can kind of think about that might be a little bit different than what they were going to think about during the day. Okta, I killed that trade today. Now it will go up. But yeah, DHI, the housing numbers and some comments from Lennar were very positive. So I added a couple trades in housing. I day traded a little bit of Teladoc today, but you can see overall I really didn't trade that much. I actually bought some puts in IWM today. Day traded those and then put on a little bit of a portfolio hedge at the end of the day, and then just added a little bit of Square. Right. I like this move higher, and I'm looking for Square to break out further. The trade of the day for everybody, or the stock of the day, was Roku. Big move. We talked about Roku like in the beginning of the day when we first saw calls in it, but they just hammered calls in this thing basically all day long. You can see how this looks on our dashboard here, but I mean, lots of little, I call them nibbles. They were nibbling on Roku, weeklies mostly. This started at about 11 o'clock this morning, and the chart that we went over in Roku. Did I put this in the Market Webs channel? I didn't put that one in the channel today, but I think we started with this one. Let's see. We have all the option activity. Let me just close this really quick, see if I can find that. But let's try one more time here. see if I can. Nope, can't find it. Yeah, so we did post a chart earlier in this, and it was just basically sitting right at the bottom of value. It did make its way through. Just really a lot of momentum in this name. I didn't trade it. A lot of traders in the room traded. Gave a little check back here to the top of value on the 1 hour chart, and then just kept on going, and they just kept on firing calls at this thing, momentum calls as I call them, basically all day long in Roku. And I think most option traders talking about this name, and this is a good example. By the way, if you haven't seen this before, right, to see these little, what I call nibbles, just over and over and over, a $30,000 premium trade, a 50,000, a $27,000 option trade, a 35,000. So just continuous, like almost like not any like heavy blocks of Roku, but just like rapid fire like bullets, is basically what momentum call buying is. All right, and then finally, yeah, I think I covered all the trades. But again, most of my trading was done. We just kind of participated a little bit today in some things. So just overall bottom line in terms of what's going on with going into tomorrow. I think we're continuing to see some nice setups. So it's not like even though the put call ratio is indicating very complacency, there continues to be nice looking setups in different names. And that's just seems to be what we're seeing on a daily basis. Keep in mind, Powell spoke today, and I think really, as long as the market just really doesn't get way ahead of itself, I think that this has the opportunity to continue because the Fed has the markets back. They're going to do whatever it takes to get this economy going. One of the well, I guess there's a couple of risks right now. There's some geopolitical risks right now with China, but I think everybody's worried about a possible second wave. I think as long as you see New York, New Jersey, and California, not have any major tick up in terms of cases. Some of these other states, it's going to be painful to watch, but hopefully that won't derail the whole recovery. And I do think that that's one of the risks right now. And we'll be watching that every day. And as those numbers come out, we get to see the Florida numbers first, the Texas numbers, and then New York sometime in the afternoon. And that's just what it's going to be like, for now. All right, guys. So thanks for watching. I think for now, stay the course. If you feel like there could be a little bit more of an uptick in volatility, put on a little bit insurance policy. I did that today with IWM puts going out a couple weeks, and again, I want that that hedge to go to zero because that should mean everything else is working. But if you need a hedge, if you're worried about some of the geopolitical stuff, I don't think there's anything wrong personally with carrying a little bit of a hedge so you can participate in this kind of stuff. Oh, and by the way, I did not show the performance, but yes, just to show you like how difficult. I mean, look at most names. I'd like to look at this percentage change from the open, and you could see, most names, especially those travel names that we discussed. This is the. Oh, it looks like this is wrong for this. It's labeled wrong, but this is the travel ETF. And you could see, that gave back all the gains for the day, down 4% since the open. So again, tricky when you have gap ups like this. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great night. Again, everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Have a great night, everybody.